On the cold night of February 21st, 2006, a quiet town in Kent became the scene of Britain's largest ever cash robbery. The Securitas cash depot in Tonbridge, responsible for sorting and distributing hundreds of millions of pounds, was thought to be one of the safest facilities in the country. It was a fortress filled with steel cages, surveillance cameras and round-the-clock security. Yet that night, a gang of heavily armed criminals would walk away with nearly £53 million in cash. An audacious heist that shocked the nation, left police scrambling, and has never been fully solved. Even now, nearly 2 decades later, tens of millions of pounds remain unaccounted for. It started with precision planning. The robbers had done their homework, gathering insider knowledge of the depot's operations. They knew exactly who their key target was, Colin Dixon, the depot's manager. On his way home that evening, Dixon noticed flashing blue lights in his rearview mirror. A car that appeared to be an unmarked police vehicle signaled him to pull over. Believing he was being stopped by law enforcement, Dixon complied. The man approaching his car was dressed in a police uniform, complete with a high-visibility jacket. But instead of a routine stop, Dixon was handcuffed, shoved into a vehicle, and told to keep quiet. At that moment, he had no idea this was just the beginning of a nightmare. While Dixon was being abducted, another team from the gang made their move on his home in Herne Bay, Kent. His wife Lynn and their young son were taken hostage at gunpoint, terrified and helpless. The family was driven to a secluded farm in Staplehurst, where Dixon was brought to join them. With his wife and child's lives threatened, Dixon had no choice but to cooperate with the gang. Their plan was simple, yet terrifying. Use Dixon as their key to bypass the depot's security systems. He was forced to reveal security codes, key access information and staff protocols. The robbers had spent months preparing for this moment, studying every detail of the depot's layout, its routines and its weaknesses. Just after 1 a.m. on February 22nd, the gang, armed with shotguns and even a Scorpion submachine gun, drove Dixon to the Securitas Depot. In the early hours of the morning, security was light, and the gang exploited every vulnerability. With Dixon under duress, they were able to gain entry without triggering alarms. Once inside, they moved fast. Staff members were rounded up, tied and gagged. 14 depot workers in total were restrained, along with Dixon himself. The robbers locked some employees inside empty cash cages to prevent resistance. The depot was a treasure trove. On that particular night, it held over £154 million in cash. Brand new and used banknotes, sorted by denomination and wrapped in color-coded plastic. But even with meticulous planning, the robbers couldn't take it all. They loaded as much as they could into a 7.5-ton lorry, filling it with crates and cages packed with cash bricks. By the time they left around 2:45 a.m., the truck was overflowing with money. £52,996,760 in total, the largest cash haul in British criminal history. The robbers vanished into the night, leaving terrified staff tied up and Dixon's family traumatized. It wasn't until about 3:15 a.m., nearly half an hour after the gang had driven away, that police were finally alerted. The delay gave the criminals a crucial head start. The entire operation, from Dixon's abduction to the gang's escape, had been executed with chilling precision. The scale of the robbery stunned the UK. It wasn't just the sheer amount of money, it was the way the gang had bypassed supposedly airtight security by exploiting human vulnerability. The case became a top priority for Kent police, triggering one of the largest investigations in British history. A £2 million reward was offered for information leading to the recovery of the cash. Over the following weeks, police raided multiple properties, seized vehicles and detained suspects. By the end of the investigation, around 36 people had been arrested in connection with the crime. Among the key figures were Yetmir Bupapa, Stuart Royal, Roger Coates and Paul Allen, all convicted for their roles in the robbery. One of the most infamous names linked to the heist was Lee Murray, a former mixed martial artist and cage fighter alleged to have masterminded the operation. Murray fled to Morocco shortly after the robbery and was arrested there in June 2006. Despite extradition attempts, Moroccan authorities refused to hand him over, citing his Moroccan citizenship. Murray was eventually sentenced to 25 years in a Moroccan prison, later reduced to 23.5 years. As arrests mounted, investigators managed to recover approximately £21 million in stolen cash, much of it discovered in warehouses, storage units, and buried underground. But that still left over £30 million unaccounted for. Police trace some of the missing funds through elaborate money laundering schemes involving property purchases in the UK and overseas. Yet even with dozens of convictions, the whereabouts of much of the money remains a mystery. The trial of those involved revealed extraordinary details about the planning and execution of the heist. The gang had rented warehouses and storage spaces to stash cash and equipment. They purchased vans and vehicles in advance, altered their appearances, and used fake police uniforms to gain control over Dixon. Surveillance had been conducted over months, with one insider at the depot feeding them information. The combination of meticulous planning, intimidation, and brute force made the robbery a masterclass in organized crime. The fallout was massive. The Bank of England and security companies like Securitas overhauled their security measures, introducing stricter background checks, enhanced staff protection, and improved depot defenses. Kidnap response protocols were reviewed, and armored transport security became even more rigorous. Despite these changes, the Securitas robbery has remained a grim reminder that even the most secure facilities are vulnerable when criminals target the human element. Nearly 2 decades later, the story still captures imaginations. The robbery has been the subject of documentaries, books, and endless speculation. While most of the gang members were caught, the case continues to intrigue because of what's missing. Tens of millions of pounds simply vanished, likely laundered through networks that remain hidden. For some, this heist represents criminal genius. For others, it's a symbol of how fear and violence can shatter even the strongest security systems. The Tonbridge heist was a perfect storm, a gang bold enough to impersonate police, ruthless enough to kidnap a family, and organized enough to walk away with a sum so large that it redefined the scale of cash robberies in Britain. No one was killed, but the psychological scars on the victims were immense, and the sheer size of the theft sent shockwaves through law enforcement and the financial world. To this day, it holds the title of the UK's largest cash robbery, a crime so audacious that its legend has only grown over time. Even now, as convicted members serve their sentences, some for life, one haunting question lingers: where is the missing money? The mystery of those millions and the fact that the gang was able to carry out the heist without a single gunshot fired ensures this story will be told for generations. The Securitas Depot robbery wasn't just a crime, it was a carefully choreographed spectacle of greed, fear, and cunning, and its echoes still haunt Kent's quiet streets. If stories like this fascinate you, hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dives into history's most daring crimes, and share this video with someone who loves a good heist story. Because behind every headline is a human story, and the Securitas robbery proves that sometimes truth really is stranger than fiction.